it kind of seems like the perfect time to come in and offer a sensible, voice of reason approach to this rather than get caught up in all of the hype.
Times are difficult to start with. It's absolutely worth it in the end. And then you get the freedom, you can leave your job, you can work on things that you want to work on and start to be back in control of your time again.
That's what I've tried to do here, not forget about the failures, so that if you're reading a copy of this, you don't have to learn the hard and expensive way. Instead, just watch what I've done, watch where I've failed, and hopefully we can save you a lot of that heartache along the way.
Through dropshipping and the certain automations and outsourcing that we can do, we can get it to that point where you only need to work on it for a few hours per day.
There are some key strategies in here that the big brands use, the big retailers use, that up until now, most small brands like us wouldn't have even known about.
I think having that goal of £1 million in cash to sell your business for in the future is so powerful to have that at the back of your mind that will keep you pushing on.
Say an investor came along and wanted to purchase the business from you, you could in theory hand over the keys to them for a life-changing sum of money. Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked podcast, where we unlock the secrets to high-ticket dropshipping and achieving financial freedom. I'm Lewis Smith, founder of Dropship Unlocked, and I'm joined by James Erdley, client success coach at Dropship Unlocked. Each episode, we'll be sharing our experiences and providing you with the tools you need to build a successful e-commerce empire of your own. From zero to owning £1 million online business, we'll help you achieve the ultimate freedom over your time, location, and financial future. And when we're not recording the podcast episodes or running our own e-commerce businesses, you'll find us helping people like you launch their own high-ticket dropshipping businesses. To learn more about working with us, head over to dropshipunlocked.com/free. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to access your full potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. Today, we're talking about how to achieve online business success in 6 simple steps. So with me today again is Lewis Smith, the author of the HomeServe Advantage, and he's managed to condense online business success into a strategy, into a plan that everyone can put into place and therefore achieve the location, financial and time freedom that they're after. So Lewis, before we dive into the 6 steps and the strategy behind it, what was the first inspiration behind actually writing this book?
Yeah, my inspiration, I think, came from my own experience of trying to grow a business in the first place. Now, my reason for doing so was to try to create financial, time, location, freedom, all of the freedoms that I wanted for myself and my family in the future. And I was running my own e-commerce business, and we were also running Dropship Unlocked, our mentorship program, which teaches people how to grow and start their own e-commerce businesses. But it was actually at a wedding that I was at probably last year where I was speaking to somebody and they were talking to me about their venture into e-commerce, and they were saying, I've always wanted to start an e-commerce business. I must pick your brain because I know you run businesses like that. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's have a chat. And I just remember them kind of telling me that they've been looking for a good product, and they understood everything about e-commerce. Like, they had their platform, they knew what ads they were going to run and everything. It was just about the product selection. And I couldn't help but think, man, this could turn into like a 3-hour coaching session. But we're not here for that. We're at a wedding, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But it just made me think, if that person if I could just download all the stuff that I've learned over the last few years and provide them with a step-by-step actionable plan, I could correct course at the stage that they were at, thinking that it was just the product that they needed support with selecting, and then they'd have all their prayers answered and could set them up for success in the long term, because I'd really want to see this person succeed. But I also know from experience of seeing and hearing that very common early stage e-commerce entrepreneur story that will often lead to failure and frustration and throwing in the towel before they even get up and running. And then they'll blame the model and say that e-commerce didn't work, when really it was a flawed system from the outset. So I think it was that frustration that led me to say, I want to put this into an actionable, easy to digest book that just lays out the step-by-step so that people can action the plan, get up and running very, very quickly. So we get hundreds of emails per week to our Dropship Unlocked email inbox from podcast listeners or people that have seen our ads out there who would love to implement what we teach. but they say, oh, I've already got a good grasp on e-commerce. I just need this step. I just need the ads bit, or I just need the product selection bit, or I just need to, and you realize that they think that that's the only part that they need, but actually none of it works in isolation. It's a holistic approach that every part depends on the other parts of the system being set up correctly in the way that we want it to be, so that when we reach week 6, for example, and we're running ads and we have our suppliers signed and the whole system works, there's not some weak link in the chain because that step was skipped early on. So I thought, well, if I can create a book that guides people through that step by step and gets them to the point from being a complete beginner with e-commerce right through to having a business that's up and running and built on really strong, solid foundations, it's going to set them up for success in the long term. But I've also tried to make the book as accessible as possible for people, no matter where they are on the journey. So if they are already up and running and they say, I just need your help with ads, or I just need product selection, or I just need to find UK suppliers, we've created the HomeServe Advantage book, which I've got a copy of on the Kindle here, so you can see what the cover's like that you're looking for. We've created it in a way that is accessible to everybody, no matter where you are on your journey, right? So there are certain chapters that maybe you can just skim through if you're a bit further ahead, or others may prefer to go through the workbooks step by step and action the plan as we go, because there's just so much noise out there in terms of building an e-commerce business. It's difficult to know where to start, isn't it?
There really is. I think when you first start to think about achieving success with an online business, you're overwhelmed by the amount of noise out there and the different suggestions that people give you in terms of which business model to go after and how to get started. So I can resonate with that. And also the person that you met at that wedding. I think when you first make a start, you're just confused and you don't know quite which avenue to go down and what's the best option. So you just need somebody to tell you, step by step, this is the way I did it and this is the way that I think you should do it as well. And it's so important. I know when I first started and knew that I wanted to start an e-commerce business, I needed somebody to help me channel that energy into a proven path. And that's what you gave me with Dropship Unlocked. So, I can obviously vouch for that as well and cutting through that noise.
Yeah, I think the other thing that gets lost in the mix of all this noise is so many conflicting opinions and advice coming from places like YouTube, which can be a blessing and a curse, YouTube, right? Depending on what you follow. And they're often, the common narrative is saying, source cheap products from China because there's no barrier to entry. You just go to a site like AliExpress and just add the supplier to a Shopify store. Then you just blitz customers in the US, the UK, Australia, Canada with your Facebook ads and hope for the best. But having done that myself and learned the hard way, that then leads to problems with customers not receiving their items for 6 weeks, or quality control issues, or import taxes, stuff getting stuck at borders. And it just kind of creates this web of complexity and very razor thin profit margins that cause the entrepreneur to eventually question, why, I'm doing everything right, but why am I so frustrated? Why is it not working? And I can see you're nodding, like you're speaking from experience as well. I know with this, right? So it's a difficult model, isn't it? And I think if that's the common narrative people are following, no wonder they're setting themselves up for confusion.
We can both speak from experience that model of the cheap products from China, it just causes headaches. We've been there. I've sold those products. I've sold the gamepad. I've sold no-tie shoelaces. These little widgets and cheap products that I thought were going to sell in their millions across to US and Canada. It didn't work. And I think it's a very tough way to start. The numbers really aren't on your side. So using your personal experience, why did you feel like it was so important to condense that into a book?
Well, because there's so much noise about the sell products from China model, people neglect the fact that if you just focus on a domestic market, so the UK for us, because that's where we both currently live, it's so much more beneficial to people getting started with e-commerce in that you can provide next day delivery to customers. You're not dealing with customs import duties and stuff getting stuck at the border because the items are already in the UK in your supplier's warehouse, ready to dispatch quickly. You're not dealing with problematic returns if a customer needs to return an item, which does happen from time to time. This is e-commerce. It is going to happen. You are going to get returns. It's really simple and doesn't cause you lots of headaches. You just send the item back to the supplier and you get refunded as the retailer. It's just overall fewer complications and less admin. And so I just wanted to simplify that process to make it as actionable as possible and just share the lessons from my journey, because the current rise in popularity that I'm seeing happening over the last couple of years with side hustles and quiet quitting and online business, e-commerce and platforms like Shopify really starting to take off now, it kind of seems like the perfect time to come in and offer a sensible, like voice of reason approach to this rather than get caught up in all of the hype, because the hype doesn't help if you're trying to start a methodically mapped out sustainable business. What you need at that point is a step-by-step guide to creating a real successful and sustainable online business, rather than just saying like, I saw this guy and he was making millions with YouTube ads and that's what I need to do, and it's Facebook ads, and you get lost and you realize, I've got this thing that's like not really built on any foundation. So rather than seeing people keep getting lost in that noise, of like, do I do Amazon to eBay dropshipping, or what do I do, retail arbitrage, or all these kind of short-term fads, the HomeServe Advantage book is designed for those who are ready to take business seriously and want to get it right the first time and take the fast track to do so. They don't want to take the route that we've taken, which is the long, winding, figure it out yourself path. Even though we both had mentorship along the way, we can condense someone's journey now into a much shorter and less expensive time frame by just guiding them through those steps, right? So that's why we decided to launch the HomeServe Advantage book. And so, if you're thinking that this sounds amazing, I just want to get started reading it, then you can head over to htabookcom to pick up a copy of the book, start reading it straight away, start implementing it from today. And there'll be a link in the description of this podcast, I'm sure, as well. So you can click that link if you're interested.
Yeah, I wish that book was available when I first started. I was in that camp where I knew I really wanted to create an online business, but I just needed that step-by-step guide to follow. So it's going to be really valuable now that that book is out and available today. So keen to dive in again to your personal experience and how that really does shape the way that you teach people nowadays. How did your early experience actually influence the advice that you give in your book?
Well, they say that experience is the best teacher, right? So not just in success that you've had along the way, but also failures. Sometimes those are where you get the biggest lessons from. And I've learned from both my successes and failures, and probably more so from my failures, because those have been more plentiful along the way. I've had a lot more failures than I have successes. But the nice thing about that is you only need to succeed a handful of times, and the results from that success, as long as you build on it cumulatively, it negates the effect of all those failures along the way. So you almost forget about the failures. But that's what I've tried to do here, not forget about the failures, so that you don't, if you're reading a copy of this, you don't have to learn the hard and expensive way. Instead, just watch what I've done, watch where I've failed, and hopefully we can save you a lot of that heartache along the way. There've been moments where, for me, early on in my journey, it would have been completely rational for me to just give up. Like, no one would have blamed me if I'd have just said, it's not working. The rational people in my life would have probably thrown in the towel long before, because, for example, I was not making sales. The products that I had listed were not selling. The store wasn't functioning correctly. It didn't look right. The tracking might not have been working properly. The ads were spending too much. It wasn't generating the results, right? So people don't tell you this when you're starting out. They kind of paint this amazing picture of like, you'll launch ads in your store and they'll become a millionaire and it'll all work overnight. The reality is that there will be bumps along the road, and it will be a bit of a rocky road to get there. And so I've seen other people who started at the same time as me, who didn't persevere through those bumps in the road, throw in the towel, give up, go back to a job that they've now resigned themselves to working for the next 40 years. And I think that that's really sad, because that, I don't know if you've ever seen that cartoon kind of drawing of the gold miner, the miner who's digging a tunnel for treasure and is so far underground and is like two, shovel bricks away from getting to the gold, but gives up at the last minute and just throws down the shovel and walks back. But he couldn't see, he was just a couple more bricks from getting to the treasure. And so it's the same thing. It's like, there are so many points on my journey where it would have been totally rational to say, hey, this isn't working, give up. But I went from never having sold anything online, other than maybe a couple of secondhand items on eBay over the years, to, within the last few years, now generating £7.5 million in revenue from across all of my online businesses. And so I think I can now speak from a pretty good amount of experience that I've learned a lot of things along the way that do work and a lot that doesn't work. So the idea of this book is to give you practical first-hand knowledge that has influenced the advice that's going into this book, because I've been in the trenches, I've made the mistakes, I'm still doing this today, I've found what really works. And so I believe that it gives my guidance a level of authenticity and reliability, rather than people who are just writing about it in theory but don't do it themselves.
And that's a really powerful place to come from. And it just shows that you have some failures and there'll be difficult times, but if you've got some mentorship or support or somebody to pat you on the back to keep you going, even if times are difficult to start with, it's absolutely worth it in the end. And then you get the freedom, you can leave your job, you can work on things that you want to work on and start to be back in control of your time again. So absolutely worth the hard times in the initial periods. So the title for this book is The HomeServe Advantage. So let's talk about what that actually means and what advantage can people make the most of.
Well, the HomeServe Advantage book offers a unique perspective because it provides comprehensive but simplified instructions on how to get started. So it's not just about the how, but we actually guide you through the why you need to take each step so that you understand the core fundamentals of this business, and then we show you the how, right? So it's kind of the what, the how, the why, and then the how is how we break it down. So the other thing is it's born out of real life experience, right? So you can see this coming through because I've done this myself, you've done this yourself in the UK market. So I give you the actionable steps. We give you the workbooks along the way. So at each chapter, as you're going, you're not just reading and then getting overwhelmed with information. You're actually able to follow along and build the business together as we go through the book. So I looked at what was out there in terms of books and literature and trainings within the world of e-commerce. And there's a lot of good stuff, but it's often very generic because it has to be to a universal model of e-commerce. But it's not necessarily the most helpful or applicable thing if you're using a specific type of model, such as the HomeServe Advantage model in the UK market. So if that's the model you want to follow, then some of the advice will be a bit confusing from other sources. That's why it's important to condense all this information into one trusted, reliable set of step-by-step actions. So the HomeServe Advantage model, for anybody that doesn't know, is the model that we use that involves working with domestic suppliers. So in our case, in the UK, so just meaning in the same country that you're in, who will dropship products to customers in the same country that they're in. Right, so it's UK suppliers to UK customers. Now, interestingly, that doesn't mean that you as the entrepreneur needs to live in the UK. I ran business like this from Thailand for years. So the ability to be able to live anywhere is one of the benefits from this. But I think people sometimes ask, and they have asked me in the past, is the UK market really big enough for this? Don't you need to operate globally? But I have to explain, it's not about just a bigger market, but it's about a better understanding and delivering to a specific market within your market. So if you choose a big enough niche market with enough demand within the UK, because we're selling higher ticket products up to 200, 300, 500, even up to £2,000, if you choose a big enough market that's in demand so that you can make at least a few sales per day, say you even got 0.5% of that market, you can still become a multi-millionaire just by operating within the UK market in a market that size, right? So it's not just about the geographical size of the market. It's about what you do within that market and how you speak to the market and the audience and the niche demographic that you've chosen to sell products within. The other products are obviously that we do sell higher profit, higher price items. So that means that, say on a product of £2,000 and you're making a 30% profit margin, you'd be making a net profit of £600 on a single transaction, on one sale. So then that means you need to just forward one email to your supplier. You've made £600 profit. If you're making £600 profit in one sale, how many sales do you need per day to replace your current income? How many sales do you need in a month? Do you see what I mean? It's much simpler. There's less volume, less admin, less headaches. And customers buy products like that online every day. And that just makes it a more enjoyable lifestyle business for us as entrepreneurs.
Certainly, I can vouch for that. And they do buy these products every day. We see sales in our store of over £1,000 on a daily basis. And people are out there looking for these products. It's just up to you to actually be able to provide them to people with easy returns, with fast delivery and everything else that customers want. And we can provide that. So the best thing I think about the HomeServe Advantage book is the fact that you've cut through the noise and just decided to focus on one model. So often you'll read a book and it has some real good advice, but it's very vague and it leaves you not really sure about how to implement the advice from that book. But with the HomeServe Advantage, every point is backed up with the action that you can take after learning that. And knowledge without action is pointless. So it shows you how to actually apply everything that you've learned from that book. So let's start unpacking the steps that you've actually gone through in the book so people can learn from it and take action from this as well today. So what's the first thing that somebody would need to do when launching a dropshipping business in the UK?
Yeah, the product or the niche selection part of the process is going to be the heart of an e-commerce business, because ultimately what you sell will play a big part in, not the entire part, but a big role in determining your success. So we want to get this bit right. Now, people always say, do I need to be passionate about the products that I'm selling? Should I focus on something I'm interested in and have a personal passion about? So in this book, I talk about how we find products that not only align with your passion and interests, but also have a high market potential, right? So they're based on things like existing demand. We look at the data points around that. We don't base it on gut feelings and instincts and, hey, my friend said that they bought one of these things recently, so I'm sure I can build a business around it, or I would buy one of these, so there's definitely a market for it. You're not representative of the demographic necessarily, so let's look at the whole market. Let's take a snapshot of data-driven insights and figure out, is this business viable before we go and spend time, energy, money building it? So that's a big part of what we do inside this chapter. So we'll look at things like demand, right? We want to make sure that we base the products that we're going to sell on demand. We don't want to sell trending products. So remember things like fidget spinners that came out a few years ago, or those electric hoverboards that everyone started buying. We don't want to buy something that's a flash in the pan that then dries up tomorrow because there's no more demand because the fad has passed. We don't want to sell seasonal products. So things like Christmas trees, like where your entire business is based around like one day of the year. And we want to make sure that there are plenty of UK suppliers available within the market, that there's good price consistency. So there are all of these different factors that we want to take into consideration, and we guide you through in the workbook exactly how to do that in that chapter. But they're all factors that we cover in chapter 3, so that by the end of chapter 3, you not only have selected a niche that you're going to sell in, but you're confident about that because it's based on data. So you can be really excited that it's products that I'm passionate about, I want to sell them, and I'm confident that the business isn't going to crumble when I start.
I certainly fell into that trap of going after trending products. And it's something that really holds a lot of people back when they want to start a business is, which product do I sell? And what a lot of people do, including myself, is go to YouTube, search for top products to sell, drop shipping, and you'll get the list that everyone's watched. And there's perhaps 2 million views on those videos because everyone's seen that these are the trending products to buy. And of course, then everyone buys that. And none of those products have actually been put into that list based on data. So it's very important to have a clear system that you can find a product that you can be confident in. And therefore, you'll know that it will sell, and you'll know that it will sell for the long term to create a long-term sustainable income stream for you.
Yeah, and so many early stage e-commerce entrepreneurs fail to look into that data. They kind of just neglect it, and they go based on a gut instinct or a passion, and they feel that, their friends and family would buy this, so therefore it's going to work. And then later when it fails, because there's not adequate demand there, or they didn't do that research, they can't find the suppliers or whatever, then it starts to fall apart. So if you follow the steps outlined in chapter 3 of the book, that won't be you, because if you choose the right product from the outset, it sets you up for success in later steps. And what I mean by that is sometimes people say, okay, so what if I pick this niche, but then I can't sign suppliers later? And I say, but if you'd followed the steps in chapter 3 of the book, I guide you through the criteria to choose the right niche so that you can be 100% sure that when you reach the point of signing suppliers, which comes later in the book, you will know that those suppliers will already be happy to work with you because you did the research process in chapter 3. So it's where so many people get stuck who don't follow this method. So if you just follow the steps inside the workbook in chapter 3, that won't be you when you reach that stage, which is a really nice feeling of confidence to have going into this.
Absolutely. And if you follow the steps through in a particular method, then you start to realize why you did a step a few weeks ago or just before, because then it leads on nicely to the next one. So once you've chosen the products that you've been backed up by data, you're confident that they're going to sell, how do you then make sure you can find suppliers that will supply products and deliver directly to your customer?
Yeah, great question, because this bit's crucial, because your suppliers and who you source the products from are going to affect the quality of your products and ultimately the business success overall and your customer satisfaction. So we make sure that when we contact suppliers, we're only contacting suppliers that we know are already able and willing to dropship for us. That's a really important part. We're not trying to convince suppliers who've never heard of dropshipping or who don't know what it is or who've never done it before to suddenly take a risk on us as a business. That maybe comes later, and we have done that over time once we're more established. But to start with, why not just work with suppliers who are already set up for this business model? It reduces the stress, the admin burden on you. Now, there's a specific way that we talk to new suppliers because they want to hear that we know what we're talking about. And I've learned from my own interactions with suppliers over the years that there are certain things they want to hear from us and other things that they absolutely don't want to hear. So you've only got to mess up on a couple of occasions with suppliers by saying the wrong thing from inexperience that leads them to not want to work with you. So in chapter 5, I guide you through how to approach these suppliers in a way that ensures that you say the right thing from the outset so that you're setting that conversation up for long-term success. So I can give a couple of tips now if it's helpful. So on the phone with suppliers, we'll sometimes break down our marketing strategy so that they understand how their brand will be promoted. So we're giving them the guide on like, this is how we'll be running ads to your brand. This is the type of effect that it will have on your future sales and brand recognition. Remember, this kind of thing is music to a supplier's ears. And we also provide them with our launch date for our store and our marketing campaigns. Because what this does is bakes in a bit of a deadline and some legitimate urgency into the discussion so that they're keen to be on board with us and partnered with us in time for our launch. Now, people say, but say you're selling a brand on your site, why are you promoting their brand and not your own brand, when you're building this store? Well, the best analogy that I can give for that is if you imagine a store like John Lewis, right? John Lewis is a retailer. They sell barbecues in John Lewis. One of the brands of the barbecues that they sell is Weber barbecues, right? So the Weber is the barbecue brand, and they want John Lewis, the retailer, to promote their brand as much as possible, right? So it's like John Lewis running ads to Weber barbecues under the John Lewis account. So hopefully that analogy makes sense of like, in this example, we are the John Lewis and we're selling multiple different brands underneath us, but that still means that we have a parent brand. So I think people sometimes get a bit confused about that bit. And so, yeah, we emphasize building really strong relationships with reliable quality suppliers that we're going to have relationships with for many years to come. And we're going to make them a lot of money and they'll make us a lot of money. So it's mutually beneficial. So we'll guide you through all of that inside chapter 5.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense for suppliers to partner with us. With that John Lewis analogy, if you put yourself in the mind of a brand or a supplier, they want to go where the customers already are. And our website will be where customers are because we know how to run ads. We know how to get traffic onto our site, which leads us nicely onto the next step in your book. And it's all about how we actually get traffic onto our site, how we get people looking and buying our products. So you've called it the 30,000 foot marketing strategy. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so this is something that we break down in chapter 6. So I discuss building your 30,000 foot marketing strategy because we want to devise a strategic plan instead of just randomly throwing some money at ads and hoping that it sticks, right? That's a surefire way to eventually just go out of business. We want to make sure that we understand the customer journey and we can leverage platforms like Google Ads and Meta Ads to ensure that we're bringing customers back into our ecosystem through things like email marketing or retargeting to ensure that their likelihood of making sales and purchasing from our store is maximized. So if you think of ads and Google Ads a bit like conversation starters, right? That's kind of to get the product in front of a customer. We don't go to a party if we know someone's a real cooking enthusiast, and we don't just go up to them and start talking to them about football. If we know that they have no interest or they hate football, we don't just start the conversation with football and then try and keep forcing the conversation to be all about football when you know this person's not remotely interested in it, right? They're going to switch off. It's going to be an uphill battle trying to hold that conversation. It's going to cause you a lot of effort and ultimately it's just problematic, right? It's the same thing with ads. We tailor the conversation, so the ads, to match the person's interest, i.e. what they've searched for. It's much less effort this way. It's much cheaper because we're not trying to force a topic on customers by just, getting in front of them on their social media newsfeed with a product and trying to interrupt their day with some product that they might not even be looking for. Instead, we're going to them with the thing that they're most interested in, putting it right in front of them in an ad format and saying, only click me if you're interested in potentially purchasing this thing. That way we get much higher converting traffic and it just leads to a much lower cost per acquisition to acquire that customer in the first place.
And it's so important to have a strategy in place. And once you've got a strategy in place, the right type of people will come to your website and they'll be ready to buy when they're on your website. And that's where it really starts to get exciting. You'll start to hear that cha-ching on your phone. You get the sales coming through from Shopify. And now that you've got your ad set up, it can be done on autopilot essentially because you set it in the way that we show you it with Google Ads. and you don't need to be constantly looking at it. It will be bringing people onto your store. It'll be converting those people into customers, and then you can just reap the rewards of the work that you've done to put those ads in place. So the next step, now that we've got some customers on board, is actually retaining those customers. And often, to increase your profit, the best thing you can do is to get people to buy again instead of going out to find new customers again and again. So how does your book advise people and businesses to win back lost customers and potentially go ahead and double their sales?
Yeah, that's a great point. And even before we talk about retaining customers to come back and purchase for a second or third time, I would even view it as, how do we retain visitors as customers? So it's like, before they even become customers, they're one of the early indicators that they might become customers is that they've visited our website, right? So how do we ensure that the visitors to our website are not wasted and that we get them to come back and complete that purchase? Because otherwise we paid for a click on ads and it was wasted if they then leave the website, right? So in the book, we address the importance of this whole concept. And if you imagine that if you had a bucket and it had lots of holes in it and you're pouring water into it and the water's just pouring out all of the holes, you just keep pouring water into it at a faster and faster pace, but the bucket's got holes in it, right? It's a leaky bucket. So it's the same in e-commerce with this. If you have a leaky system of ads, then your customers are kind of or your visitors are disappearing or leaving faster than you can pour new visitors in. And so you're not making up for that in the conversions through to people becoming customers. So it gets expensive because you're just throwing more money at ads and hoping that things convert better, but they're just not. So there are some key strategies in here that the big brands use, the big retailers use, that up until now, most small brands like us wouldn't have even known about. We wouldn't have been able to apply these systems. But in chapter 8 of the HomeServe Advantage book, we now talk about these and we guide you through how to set them up so that by the end of that chapter, you have things like your dynamic remarketing campaign set up. So your brand can become omnipresent in your customers' world. So, if you've ever looked up a pair of trainers online and then the next day you're on Instagram or TikTok or something and you see an ad for them and you're like, how did they know that I was interested? And you forget that you viewed it once on a website, you got pixeled by the website, and now that ad follows you around the internet. And so you become omnipresent because after the 30th time they've seen that same pair of trainers from that same brand on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Google display in a sidebar on the Guardian website and all over, eventually you're going to think, oh, well, maybe I just buy them. And that's the brand that comes to mind because you've seen it so many times. The big brands have played on this kind of billboard marketing effect for years. And now we can do the same as smaller retailers because of the way that the ad systems work. So we guide you through how to do that. We show you how to set that up. So it's basically set it and forget it. You don't need to do this more than once. Once you've set it up, it's dynamic. It will auto run for you. There are other things like email marketing systems. We give you the plug and play email flows that you can kind of just plug in your messaging to for your brand and then let them run again. That will just bring back customers who maybe abandoned the checkout before purchasing, try and win them back. And so, yeah, all of these strategies, once we set them up, work for you 24/7, 365 days a year. So you literally sit back and you can be making sales at midnight on Christmas Day without having to be there in person. It's a fantastic system, but it just takes a bit of front loading of the work. So in chapter 8, we guide you through how to do that.
And we're so fortunate that these tools that the big boys use, these big brands where they are always following you around the internet, we're so fortunate that these tools are available to us as smaller retailers when we first get started. On day one, when you first start running your ads, you can put an ad right at the very top of the search engine results page above the businesses that have spent years to get their organic listings there. We can go right above that with an ad from day one. And then after somebody's clicked on that ad, we can follow them around the internet and show them what an omnipresent business that we are. And straight away, we have that authority. As long as you get your ad set up in the correct way, that we can show people that we're an authority to buy from immediately and really start making sales straight away. So all of the tips that you share and what this business model ultimately does is it gives us a vehicle to regain control back over our lives again. So dropshipping itself, it actually lends itself to being a business where it's ultimately a lifestyle business. And it's a lot of people have that dream of the 2-hour workday. And through dropshipping and the certain automations and outsourcing that we can do, we can get it to that point where you only need to work on it for a few hours per day, if that. So how does your book help people and show people how to move towards that dream of, for example, a 2-hour workday?
Yeah, I think if you're listening to this and you're currently in a 9 to 5, there's such a big disconnect from where you are now through to the concept of a 2-hour workday or even a 2-hour work week, I would argue is possible with this type of business model. And I've shown it. I've done it myself. I know you've done it as well. If you choose to spend more time on that business, it's because you want to grow it from where it currently is. But if you also decided, hey, I just want to live in Thailand and, earn a few £1,000s a month for the rest of my days, then you could do that and legitimately work on it 2 hours per week eventually. That's not to say it will be like that from the outset, that you do need to work and put in the hours initially to get it up and running. But I know I would rather do that initially than spend the next 40 years working 9 to 5 every single day and still end up in the same position at the end of it where, do you know what I mean? I'm trying to retire in my late 60s versus being able to do that in my 30s. So I think with the HomeServe Advantage system, I share the techniques to optimize your business's operations, the tasks, so that, when you're on a plane and the pilot's like in control for takeoff and everything, and you get up to cruising altitude, and at that point they activate autopilot, right? And sometimes you see the pilot or the captain walking down the airplane and you think, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, must be someone in control. But you realize that if you're in the cockpit, they're probably there like eating their lunch and chatting and doing a bit of work and like planning the route on the iPad and stuff, but they're not flying the plane at that point because it's autopilot's activated. It's at a cruising altitude. So it's the same thing with the business. You literally, once you've done it, you can sit back, relax, and you can kind of strategize and plan your route and figure out how do we want to scale and grow the business, rather than you being caught up on the day-to-day technical tasks like, steering the business and the plane at every single turn. So the goal for us is that we front load the work, we set things up the right way in an evergreen process. So we're big advocates of evergreen systems because of the lifestyle effects that provides. And then, you can just focus on growing the business. And once you're up and running, you can even hire a virtual assistant for any of those remaining tasks that need to be done by a human, like answering customer support phone calls and answering emails and things like that. And eventually, you really can step back from it. And it can be a 2-hour work day or a 2-hour work week eventually, if you'd like it to be.
It's a great analogy. I hadn't considered it like a pilot flying a plane, but it is exactly that. You work hard to get off the runway initially, and once you're up and running, you set autopilot and it will continue to generate income for you, while you can essentially choose how you spend your time with a little bit of planning and moderating as you go and adjusting course where necessary. So yes, I love that analogy. Particularly, so chapter 10 in the book, I want to touch on that as well, because it has a very intriguing title to that chapter, and it's called The Path to Banking 1 Million in Cash. So talk to me a little bit about that. How can the HomeServe Advantage book teach people to actually bank £1 million in cash?
Yeah, there's a reason why it's chapter 10, and it's because I think that would overwhelm some people if we just introduced that in chapter 1. But it's really exciting, and once you understand the path to get there, it becomes the logical next step in chapter 10. So by the time you get to that chapter in the book, you think, I see how this is possible now, and I see how I could do this personally. That's the key. It's not like, how some lucky entrepreneurs that have figured it all out can do it. It's like, no, I have everything within my control right now to be able to do that and earn £1 million. So what we talk about in that chapter is the strategies to scale up the business sustainably, not to the point where it just goes crazy and breaks, but actually doing it where we maintain quality, we manage that increased demand, we're continually optimizing the marketing strategy and refining things, making sure we watch our profitability. It's like when you're building a skyscraper, you don't just rush it and try and build it up to the 50th floor as quickly as possible. You've got to have solid foundations so that later on, when you are at those higher levels and a storm hits, it's built on solid foundations. It's not shaky, right? And so we discuss how building the business in that way opens the door later for a potential exit if you decided you wanted to then sell the business. So that's what we're talking about here in this chapter. When we talk about banking £1 million, it's more to do with, at that point, if you decide that you want to exit your business and sell it, we've built it in a way that's packaged from day one so that you could, say an investor came along and wanted to purchase the business from you, you could in theory hand over the keys to them for a life-changing sum of money. If you go on websites like Empire Flippers and have a look at some of the dropshipping businesses for sale on their website, you will see businesses listed for over £1 million that were literally created in the last few years. And these businesses are selling all the time. And so I think, imagine sometimes people say, well, why would you sell a business? If it's doing so well and you are making so much money from it, why would you ever sell it? But that fails to take into consideration people's life circumstances. So imagine you've done this twice and you have 2 businesses now and you want to buy a house and you want to buy the house, I don't know, with a huge deposit, or you want to buy it cash. What if you sold one of those businesses? Remember, you've created them from scratch, so there's no reason why you couldn't then create another one. But by selling this one, you might cash in 3 or 4 years worth of profit in an instant. You lock in that profit, you reduce any hassle or admin that you have to ever deal with that business again, because it's then handed over, so you could then use it to purchase a house, or maybe family member needs a big operation and you want to just pay for it for them. Or there's a big life event, like we heard of people who are adopting a child, and it costs a lot of money to do that, and therefore they want that stability and that financial buffer in place to be able to do that and focus on that. So they decide to sell one of their businesses, or maybe they sell their only business and then start another one. So that's the thing that people forget. Once you've done it once, you can do it again. It's pretty replicable. And the other side of that is people ask, why would anyone ever buy a business? Why, if they're so easy to create, why would anyone buy one? Well, the flip side of that is, imagine somebody who has a lot of e-commerce experience, but wants to jump into a business that's already making 10K per month, because they know that they can take a business from 10K per month to 100K per month in profit, and that's their sweet spot. They don't want to come in and build all the foundations again. They've done that. Maybe they have a couple of million in the bank and they just want to invest in something. So the entrepreneur that's selling it is like, I've got this to 10,000 a month. That's the max it can possibly get to. It's so profitable. I've mastered it. And the buyer comes in and says, well, I only even look at businesses that are at 10,000 a month. That's my starting point. If it was less than that, I wouldn't even consider it. And so then they buy it, give the person, maybe 300,000 or whatever the multiple is, and then they take over the business and scale it up. So you can see why it works for both parties. It's important to mention, though, that it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, right? It does take hard work, as with everything that's worthwhile, but there is huge opportunity out there today. And I think if you're setting up a business like this, from the outset, it's good to know that you've built it to set you up for a potential sale down the line if you so choose.
Yeah, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, but it shows you that the possibilities are there once you put the work in and front-load that work to get yourself set up for the future. I think having that goal of £1 million in cash to sell your business for in the future is so powerful to have that at the back of your mind. That will keep you pushing on, and eventually you'll get there, following the right training, having the right support in place, and absolutely you can do that for yourself as well. I think selling a successful e-commerce business is like a well-maintained, valuable property. So the efforts that you put in to actually maintain or build that property in the first place can then fetch you a lucrative sum in the future if you decide to sell that. So just as a property can become a real possession for the buyer, then a successful e-commerce business is in the same way, where you can provide that new owner with a reliable and profitable income stream from the very start. So we've covered a lot today, Lewis. So thank you for helping us go through some of the points you've laid out in this book. It's obviously a great book and I endorse it massively. Before we answer a question from a listener, is there anything else you'd like to share or offer to listeners regarding the book or anything we've discussed today?
Yeah, I mean, I just firstly want to emphasize the book is broken up into the 6 steps. So really, we're just scratching the surface of what is possible, and it's just a fraction of the knowledge and insights that we've packed into the HomeServe Advantage book. So if you are seriously considering this journey, I'd highly recommend grabbing a copy. It really could be the game changer that you're looking for and set you up for success in the long term if you follow the steps. So you can head over to htabookcom. That's htabookcom, and that stands for HomeServe Advantage. And for those listeners who prefer a more dynamic visual learning experience, don't forget to visit dropshipunlocked.com/free. There you'll find our free training content. And remember, your journey to e-commerce success starts with the first step. So it's never too late to begin. We're always here to help and to guide you every step of the way whenever you're ready to get started. Just a quick heads up, if you'd like to share your questions, stories, successes, or challenges, you can email us directly at podcast@dropshipunlocked.com. And you never know, we might even feature you on the next podcast episode.
Also, if you want access to today's show notes or any of the resources we've mentioned in the episode today, then head over to dropshipunlocked.com/podcast. We also have a small favour to ask of you. If you enjoyed the show so far, you could take a minute to leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice.
You wouldn't believe how much your reviews help us grow the podcast. We'll even read out some of our favourites on the next episode. So if you want to be featured on the show, please do go ahead and leave us a review today. Thanks so much for your support. We really couldn't do it without you, and we absolutely love hearing what you think of the podcast.
Now let's answer a listener question. So remember, if you want your questions answered on a podcast episode soon, all you need to do is email us and it's podcast@dropshipunlocked.com.
So the question this week is actually addressed for you, James. So I'll read it out to you. Guy has asked, why have you chosen now to work for Dropship Unlocked whilst you have a successful dropshipping business to run?
Brilliant. Well, firstly, thank you very much for your question, Guy. And it lets me dive into this answer that maybe a few people have on their mind. And there's quite a few reasons why I've now started to work as a client success coach with Dropship Unlocked. The first one is that essentially I've got my e-commerce businesses, my dropshipping businesses, to the point where they don't need my constant involvement. As we mentioned in the episode today, you can get it to a point where it only takes perhaps a few hours per week maximum, and it will still generate an income for me. And there's a chapter in the 4-Hour Work Week, if you read that, and it's called Filling the Void. And it's when you get yourself, and you've automated and you've outsourced certain things, so you get yourself to a position where you have actually freed up your time. So for the other 34 or 36 hours in the work week that you now have free, you're looking for other things to do. And for me, I'm really keen to always improve myself and also to help others. It's very rewarding to see people get out of their comfort zone, achieve something that they didn't think they could achieve, and achieve success that they'd never achieved before. And so by being a client success coach at Dropship Unlocked, every day I can see the success that people are making through running these dropshipping businesses. And it's so rewarding to see and to have a hand in giving people a bit of a leg up in certain areas when they need it with their businesses. It's been so rewarding ever since starting, and I genuinely enjoy that. So now that I've got my time free and I've got some time back, now that my dropshipping businesses are set up, being able to give back is a big part of it. And that really does mean a lot to me. I think with Dropship Unlocked, it gave me so much because it taught me how to go from no experience to running successful dropshipping businesses. I'm able now to give back to the program by helping out and helping new members to get to the same sort of level that I'm at today. So it really means a lot to me to be able to give back and hopefully, to you, Lewis, as well, give back something that you gave to me, which was to get me to a point of leaving my 9 to 5 and now running a business full time, which I really, really enjoy.
Definitely, yeah. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the team, James. You add a huge amount of value to our community, and I know that I speak for everyone in our community when they say that the support that they get from you and the patience that you have with everybody who's along their journey at various different stages definitely doesn't go unnoticed. So yeah, you're a huge valuable addition to the team, and we love having you on board.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. But also, as being part of the Dropship Unlocked team, it gives me access to yourself, obviously, and also the whole team has got such a supportive way about us, and being in that environment helps me with my dropshipping business as well, just through exposure and talking to you about the things we talk about on this podcast, about improving conversion rate that we've recently had an episode on, and those sort of things. I really get a lot of value out of being with the team, so it's a no-brainer for me to continue working with Dropship Unlocked while my e-commerce businesses are running alongside.
That's great to hear. Good stuff. Well, we'll take a moment now to highlight a fantastic listener review. So a big thank you to Karen for sharing your thoughts on this review.
Yes, thank you very much, Karen, for reviewing the podcast. So Karen said, I rated 5 stars and hit the notifications bell so I can listen to all podcasts as you release them. Keep being rock stars.
Thank you so much for your review, Karen. We're so glad to hear that you've been enjoying the podcast. Now, would you like to hear your review read out on the podcast? If so, leave us a rating and review on whichever platform you're tuning in from, or comment on our YouTube channel, and we'd love to read out your review on a coming episode soon. And don't forget that if you're someone who's contemplating the launch of your own business, think about how you first heard about this episode and then consider, was it shared with you? Did you see someone post about it on social media? Maybe you'd consider paying it forward and sharing the episode on your own social channels, because your actions can significantly influence another person's journey, and it might just be the catalyst that they need to finally take action. So go ahead, spread this episode on your social media or send it via WhatsApp to a friend today and play a huge role in their entrepreneurial journey.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you found today's episode useful and inspiring.
Remember, if you're ready to take the next step towards creating your own high-ticket dropshipping business, our step-by-step mentorship program can help. Just head to dropshipunlocked.com/free to learn more and get started on your own journey to financial independence.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss another episode, and leave us a review if you've enjoyed what you hear today. We love hearing from our listeners, and we'll even read out some reviews on the next episode.
And finally, thanks for choosing to spend your time with us today. We really appreciate you, and we'll be back soon with more valuable insights and tips on high-ticket dropshipping.